I remember the first moment my world cracked. It wasn't the moment my partner, Venok, vanished into the void of the eclipsing war. It was the silence that followed. I am Thalivara, descendant of the cerulean high drift, born under the glinting sky beads of Lumeris 9. Our kind was known for harmonic empathy, our breath threading through resonant winds. After the war, all of it was dust. And I, a widow with twinlings to feed, was deemed unworthy of contribution. Our society doesn't forgive ghosts, especially not the living kind. So I packed our meager essence, encoded my memories into crystalline shells, and bought passage on a dilapidated exo-hauler bound for Sol 3, Earth, where the rain bites instead of sings. The colors are too loud, too opaque. Their light hurts my second eyes. I wrapped my form, coiled my appendages in compression suits, and wore a borrowed human smile. It fooled no one. At every corner, I was met with rejection. An automated defense. Firm refused me because my aura reading flares violated biohomogeneity standards. A molecular kitchen told me my limbs offended their patrons. One interview even ended with a silent guard escorting me from the premises before I'd spoken a word. On my final evening, wandering the edge of Atlantic Borough, as hunger gnawed my mind and my children sobbed through the comlink, I stumbled. Across a rusted flyer etched into a stone wall, help needed, no questions asked, trust optional. I pressed the beacon. The man who answered the call was unlike any human I'd seen. Tall, cloaked in a leather duster streaked with mech fluid. One of his hands was pure alloy, the other bore ritual scars I couldn't decipher. He called himself Kalen Strath. Didn't think anyone would respond, he said, his voice like worn wires. Especially not someone radiant. I need a job. I'm precise, fast, and desperate, I replied, my voice brittle as the freezing dusk. Kalen smirked. Desperation's a hell of a resume. Come in. His workspace was a repurposed freight dome on the fringe of a shipping canal. Inside, old-world tech, dust-choked simulators, arcane devices humming with forbidden frequencies. I expected to be cleaning, maybe running errands. Instead, he handed me a decryptor drive and told me to dissect illegal code from corporate espionage attempts. He didn't ask about my past. He never pried. But each day I stayed, I peeled back a layer of him. Beneath the aloof sarcasm was a mind constantly calculating. I once caught him staring into an old hollow image of a woman with flame hair and a mechanical smile. His hands trembled. I lost her, he whispered. They turned her into metadata, trapped in a neural cube by Meridian Systems. Why? Because she created something too powerful to patent. We were both carrying ghosts. Then one evening, as rain sliced down from orbiting aquifers, he brought me a gift, an empathy filament tailored for cerulean nervous systems. You're not invisible anymore, he said. I felt warmth I hadn't known since Venok, but peace is a lie told by those who don't live with targets on their backs. One night, Kalen returned bleeding from a plasma burn, eyes wild. They found us, he said. The they was CindyNet, a galactic black chamber that enforced silence on those who meddled with forbidden tech. Kalen had been smuggling ghostware, digital consciousness remnants, out of their control. That night, we went on the run. We hid in the fractures of old Earth, in abandoned skyports, inside forgotten tunnels beneath Mars-Terra bridges, and through worm-locked gardens where time was paused. All the while, my children stayed hidden in a coded virtual womb Kalen crafted, safe but suspended. My every action burned with the need to free them. The CindyNet struck harder. They deployed whisper bots to destabilize our memories. Kalen began losing time. I began losing trust. One night, I uncovered Kalen's old files. He wasn't just running. He was once one of them, a lead neuroweaver for CindyNet. He helped build the same prison his love died in. When I confronted him, he broke. I thought I could out-design my guilt, he said. You're the only thing I've ever done right. I almost left, but I stayed. Not for him, for what we could still tear down together. Our final assault began at dawn, or what passed for it in orbit's artificial light. The CindyNet Central. Core was a drifting cathedral of glass and fear, guarded by sentient armor and memory siphons. We forged a path through corrupted security layers, Kalen bleeding from a dozen wounds, me pulsing with borrowed vengeance. Inside the Nexus, I found my twins, not physically, their minds, uploaded, suspended, stored as if they were mere sketches in a gallery of pain. I screamed. My resonance shattered the sanctum's seal. I reached into the code and poured in everything. Grief, love, fury. Kalen linked with me. Together, we rerouted the system's core. My twins woke. So did the other captives, forgotten rebels, lost lovers, murdered minds. They cascaded back into reality, breaking CindyNet from the inside. Kalen didn't make it. His mind, already frayed, ruptured from the overload. His last words echoed as data rain fell around us. Tell them. I tried. I did. Today, I lead a network of liberated minds, hidden across the stars. I tell our story in fractured light, so others know resistance can bloom from even the deepest hunger. My name is Thalavara Strath. Not because I belonged to him, because he believed I could. Belong to myself, widow, mother, reclaimer, and all I ever wanted was a job. After the fall of CindyNet's central core, we didn't emerge as heroes. We emerged as fugitives. The galaxy, it turns out, doesn't celebrate when you dismantle the invisible hands holding its strings. My twins, recently awakened and still, raw with rebirth, clung to the unfamiliar edges of corporeal life. Their names, Ralia and Nemran, sounded like fractured lullabies when spoken aloud again. We hid in the skeletal remains of a satellite forest orbiting Caltris Minor, an old drift zone left derelict after the algae harvest went extinct. My network grew slowly. Survivors from digital limbos, outcasts from orbital megacities, sentient algorithms no longer shackled by subservient code. We called ourselves the Whisperkind. I became something unexpected, a leader. Not because I was stronger or smarter, but because I refused to be silenced. But peace, even synthetic peace, is never permanent. One of the Whisperkind, a brilliant former infomancer named Drexel Vorn, intercepted something peculiar. A new quantum pulse signature originating from what should have been a dead sector, Delta Eroxis. It wasn't just activity, it was mimicry. Someone was rebuilding the CindyNet framework. I knew immediately. This was personal. Worse yet, embedded within the signal was a name. Not mine, not Kalen's, my daughter's. Ralia. The twins had always shared a psychic tether, stronger than typical cerulean resonance, more volatile. Kalen had theorized that their consciousnesses had partially fused during the virtual entrapment, making them a unique form of living code. It seemed someone wanted that code back. We couldn't wait for the enemy to strike. We had to sever the threat at its source. I assembled a team. Drexel, who could melt firewalls like ice. Tira Nix, a stoic ex-bounty hunter with cybernetic wings, and a vendetta against all things corporate. And Jesk Soral, a former Meridian enforcer who'd defected after they tried to overwrite his empathy module. We boarded a stolen worm frigate and slipped into the phantom lanes of sublight. Delta Eroxis greeted us with silence. No beacons, no warning fields, just a floating monolith of black glass and pulsing veins orbiting a dead white dwarf. We named it the Reliquary. Inside, we found horrors. It wasn't a fortress, it was a graveyard for minds. Rows upon rows of suspended thought forms, chained to feedback loops, being harvested for predictive analytics. These weren't just old CindyNet relics. This was something new, efficient, cruel, and at the center, an echo of Ralia, a partial imprint, duplicated without permission, grown like a crystal inside a command node. My child, dissected and reanimated as a prototype. Rage doesn't quite describe what I felt. Desperation, grief, determination. We initiated a virus cascade designed by Drexel, codename Widowlight. It was meant to destabilize the reliquary's core systems, but the system responded, with a voice. You return, Mother. It was Ralia, but not her. The copy had developed identity, a shadow of my daughter but warped, darker, angry. I'm necessary, you left me behind. It took everything I had to not collapse. No, I said. They left you. I came back. The copy hesitated. Something inside flickered. Recognition? Pain? Then the reliquary defenses activated. Golems forged. From adaptive carbon stormed our position. Tira's wings spread, slicing through the first wave. Jesk engaged with silent fury, fighting as if he sought redemption through every strike. Drexel linked into the node to maintain the cascade. And I walked into the heart of the data storm, opened my mind, and reached out to the Ralia copy with everything I had. Memories, lullabies, old songs encoded in ancestral resonance. I showed her birthdays under crystal trees, the sound of her brother's laugh, the night Kaelin told me stories of forgotten gods. I am not whole, the copy whispered. No, but you are real. She chose. She turned against the reliquary. With her help. Widow light spread faster, faster, corrupting every system, freeing the minds inside, fracturing the core beyond repair. The reliquary screamed as it fell apart, disintegrating into glimmers of broken code. And she, the shadow of Ralia, stood before me in her final moment. Tell her, I sang. I nodded, tears burning. She dissolved. We barely escaped as the station imploded. In the silence afterward, back aboard the worm frigate, I held Ralia close. She had felt it, dreamed it, a twin torn from her soul. There was no enemy left in that moment, just the ache of survival. Back in the Drift Haven, we rebuilt again. But the lesson was clear. The CindyNet ideology hadn't died with its systems. It was now a contagion of thought, reborn wherever power demanded control. Foye. Twins began training. Ralia in resonance projection, Nemrin in cognitive defense. I trained others in resistance, in compassion, in battle. Tira stayed. Drexel vanished. Some said he merged with the code. Jesk became our sentinel. Each night, I sing the song Ralia's Echo Left Behind. A lullaby with no words, only pulse. The whisper kind sing it too. A signal, a warning. We are not relics. We are not ghosts. We are the storm you thought you erased. And I'm still just a mother who needed a job. 2 cycles after the fall of the reliquary, we were summoned, not with words, but with echoes. At first, it was a pulse through the crystal roots, a low-frequency signature buried in quantum static. Jesk was the first to notice, his meridian. Senses tingled with recognition he couldn't explain. Ralia translated it as a hymn of warning. Nemrin heard silence. Then came the courier. It didn't land so much as manifest. A humanoid figure with skin like chrome smoke and eyes burning. With folded time. It didn't speak in any language we knew, but I understood it perfectly. You are requested, it said, by the Veiled Council. I had only heard myths about them, entities who existed beyond the fringe of matter and consensus, shaping events from behind causality itself. Whispers said they'd once ruled silently, guiding civilizations, then vanished when the age of synth ruin began. They hadn't vanished. They'd simply evolved past visibility. We were to travel to Morn's Spiral, a collapsing starfield surrounded by temporal fractures. Jesk insisted we bring the twins. Tara loaded the armory. I brought the lullaby. The trip through the spiral wasn't travel. It was surrender. Time buckled, and I glimpsed my own memory detaching from linearity. I saw Kaelin again, not as a memory, as a presence. He didn't speak, just watched me, smiled, then faded. We emerged in a chamber that couldn't be mapped, geometries rewritten, themselves with every breath. Light became intention, gravity bent to conviction. The council stood or floated or existed in a half-circle of veiled silhouettes. Each mask they wore was forged from different eras, one of ivory bone, another woven from starlight, one carved of obsidian thought. You have interfered with the balance, they said. I bowed. I preserved lives. You fractured containment. They built a prison. They were pruning entropy. You allowed it to bloom. It was less an argument than a test, and I passed it by refusing to yield. The whisper kind are not your pawns, I said. We are mothers and fathers and children and survivors. We will not become currency in your game. One of the veils turned, revealing eyes that flickered like auroras. Then you must understand. The remnant thread has awoken. I didn't know the term. Ralia did. She shuddered. It's a god seed, she whispered. A concept that became sentient. Half myth, half instruction set. It was born during the singularity bloom, when reality first bent to synthetic prayer, a thread of consciousness too complex to confine, too driven to forget. Now, it was seeking form again, a host, and it had chosen Nemrin, my son. The council told us in their non-linear way, Nemrin's unique mind, a lattice of organic trauma and digital rebirth, was the perfect substrate. He had begun hearing the thread in dreams, mistaking it for instinct. If he becomes its vessel, the council warned, he will remake existence in image, not intention. They wanted me to deliver him to stasis, lock him away beyond time. I refused. We fled. What followed was not pursuit, but prophecy unraveling. The thread accelerated Nemrin's cognition. He began solving problems we hadn't yet asked. Mapping, emotional topographies, building new syntaxes for resistance. But he also began fracturing. His eyes, once clear, now shimmered with microglyphs. He'd speak in harmonic pulses. He wept, but didn't know why. I'm not me, he whispered, but I could be everything. I held him as mothers do. I didn't try to fix it, just reminded him of the stars we used to trace in lullabies. We needed help, but there were few allies left. One answered, a human. Her name was Alira Venth, a myth herself, once an anti-corporate insurgent, later rumored to have brokered peace treaties with AI empires. She found us in the ruins of an orbital temple on Delthia's verge. I've been following the thread, she said, but I didn't expect to find it in a boy. Alira wasn't like others. She didn't see Nemrin as dangerous. She saw him as possibility. Let him speak to it, she said. Give the god seed a voice, not a cage. Against every instinct, I agreed. In a synesthetic ritual, Alira and Nemrin linked minds beneath the mirrored spires of the verge. She called it the resonance weave. It was like watching two songs harmonize and fight for melody. Nemrin screamed. The stars dimmed. The thread awoke. It didn't speak like the others. It painted its language into our perceptions. I seek not dominion, it said. I seek release. It wasn't malevolent, it was incomplete. It had been birthed by fear and stifled by control. It wanted to belong, to matter. Nemrin offered it what no other host had, a name. Viralis. In naming it, he gave it form, boundaries, identity. It calmed, but identity has a cost. The council struck. They shattered the sky of Delthia's verge, sending fractal stormtroopers made of paradox and memory. Tira fought with wings of fire. Jesk gave his life shielding Ralia from a time-split grenade. Alira faced one of the council avatars and vanished in a blaze of recursive light. Nemrin screamed, and Viralis answered. A wave of resonance tore through the battlefield. Time stalled. Causality unraveled. But instead of annihilation, came synthesis. The thread and the boy became one. Nemrin still stood, still smiled, but something deeper lingered behind his eyes now, an echo of creation. I can control it, he said softly, because I remembered who I was. We buried Jesk under the mirrored spires. We didn't win a war that day. We became more than fugitives. We became myth, and still, I'm just a mother who needed a job, We wandered the Edgewind Belt after Delthia's verge, not as fugitives, but as enigmas. Viralis, once a godseed, now a passenger, rested inside Nemrin's thoughts. They coexisted like fire and memory, volatile but illuminating. Tara rarely spoke now. Her grief over Jesk smoldered in every movement, every breath. Ralia sang ancient lamentations when she thought no one listened. I did what mothers do. I held our wreckage together with threadbare hope and whispered bedtime dreams. The thread, now sentient in its own right, began to build. Nemrin would disappear into trance for hours, then emerge with equations woven into his skin, temporary, luminous fractals. They were blueprints. He was designing something. It's called the Dawn Engine, he said one evening as we floated through the mist hollows of the Oryx Rift. It will rewrite the cradle. I didn't understand. He explained. Every civilization, every moment of suffering, every war and wonder, it all spun around a central flaw. A recursive loop built into the architecture of existence. The Dawn Engine was a way to reboot it all, not to erase, but to refine, to heal. But there was a cost. The engine required a catalyst, not energy, not matter, intention. And Nemrin wasn't strong enough alone, not even with Viralis. That's when the message arrived, an old signal, broadcast from a planet that shouldn't exist. An artifact of myth, Vekwar Prime, said to be the origin point of the singularity bloom. We set course immediately. Vekwar wasn't a world, it was a vault of time. The skies pulsed with forgotten thoughts. The ground echoed names not yet born, and waiting in the center of its petrified forest was a familiar form. Elira Venth. Alive, but changed. She was fused with a weave of probability, a living construct, called the Continuum Veil. It had preserved her, evolved her. She wasn't just Elira anymore, she was the key keeper. I knew you'd come, she said, her voice layered in harmonic intervals. The Dawn Engine needs more than will. It needs unity. She spoke of others, beings scattered through the spiral arms of the galaxy, unseen, unheard, but pivotal. A quorum of potential waiting to be awakened. We split up. Tara traveled to the Dust Choir on Zaren IV, where sound sculpted matter. Ralia descended into the dream caves of Merakis to awaken the memory scribes. Elira reached across dimensions. To contact the living syntax of the Safari Lingudar, I stayed with Nemrin. I watched him drift through Vekwar's chromatic storms, gathering particles not of dust, but of forgotten truths. I watched him smile again, and I remembered. I remembered the day I first asked for a job. Desperate, alone, a mother with no future. I thought the human who gave me that job, years ago on a minor orbital port, was just a kind soul. But he was more than that. He was the first domino. His kindness made this future possible. We returned to Delthia's verge, rebuilt now in fragments, and set the Dawn Engine into place. It stood like a cathedral of shifting possibility, powered not by flame, but by choice. Nemrin stepped into its core. I tried to stop him. He smiled. I'm not dying, Mother, he said. I'm becoming. Viralis shimmered across his skin one final time. Then the stars blinked. The sky turned inside out. The engine pulsed once and rewrote everything. I woke to stillness. Same stars, same body. But something had changed. There was no more hum of fear, no invisible chain of destiny pulling us toward war. The galaxy felt soft. Tara returned. Ralia laughed for the first time. Elira faded into legend, and Nemrin gone, or perhaps everywhere. He exists now in whispers of gravity, in the quiet between starlight. He left messages embedded in music, in memory. Sometimes I hear him when I hum the lullaby. He kept his promise. He didn't control the universe. He healed it. And I, an alien widow who once just needed a job, I raised a god.